Okay, so moving on to part 2, we're going to display some data that's pulled from the database. There is a bit of extra code that you can see here that wasn't present in the first video, and that's purely just so I've got a visual kind of like design to the page. So if I go to the home, you can see here I've just got kind of like a navigation bar at the top, the name of the page, welcome back. At some point we're going to have the usernames or the person's name there based on who's logged in, and then just a simple little paragraph here for the home page. I then have a link to home, a link to profile, and a link to log out at the top, which obviously the logout will come a lot later. If I click on profile, we shouldn't at this stage, it's fine too, but later on we shouldn't be able to get to profile from home if the person isn't logged in. And obviously at the moment there is no login button, there's no register button, there's nothing to say to the user to log in, and therefore there's no way that we can restrict the user on accessing this page if we don't have a login system. But the purpose of this video, this particular part in the series, is we are going to form a connection to a database which we've already got, use that connection to then execute an SQL query, which then retrieves data from the database, and then we can display that on the web page. So the whole idea here on this one is if we click on profile, we will display the username, display the person's email, and then display a list of notes that they have made in the database, which does bring me on to something we need to tweak a little bit, and that is the notes table needs an extra field put in. So we've got ID, that's fine. We've got user ID, that's also fine. Content, fine. Date created, fine. We need an extra field to store the title of the note. Just so for the idea of this web page is that we'll have the title of the notes here, maybe the date created in brackets or something, but then the idea is the user can click on one of those notes and it'll take them to a dedicated page where they can just read that note. So if we go back to PHPMyAdmin into MySQL, and we need to tweak this, so go to structure, I need to add in a new column, and I can add this at the beginning of the table, after ID, after user ID, after content. I think it's after user ID is going to be like logically, and then you've got a title, then you've got the content. So after user ID, add one column, hit go. The name of this column is going to be note_title. It's going to be a text field, and that is pretty much it. So go ahead and hit save. And now we have note title as an extra column. And if we go to browse, we have nothing. So I'm going to go ahead and insert a bunch of random ones, and I'm going to link this to user ID 1, just the admin. The title of this is going to be shopping list, and then in there I'm just going to put in a shopping list. Okay, so I've got a bunch of notes added in here, just for the sake of time. I cut the video. User ID all have the user ID of 1, but they each have their own unique ID in the database, in this table. We have a title, and we have the content, and then the date created. So ideally what we're going to do now is on our HTML/PHP files, we're going to display the note title, and then maybe the date created based on the user ID matching the person who's logged in. Since we don't have a login system working, or have one yet, we're just going to hard code in that the user ID is 1, which obviously then will change later on to be a dynamic ID based on who is logged in. So it retrieves their data. So back into Notepad++, what we need to do on the profile page is if we come down here, we can see we've got things like, in fact, let's just go back to the live view. We've got username, email, and notes. And ideally what we're going to have is in these spaces here, we're going to display the data from the database. Now we can get the username, we can get the email. The first thing I want to do is get a list of notes and the notes title displayed here. So let's go ahead and scroll back up to the top, and just in our PHP tags, we're going to insert some new code. First thing we need to do is set up a simple string that is our query. So $query equals quote, semicolon. In here, I want to write an SQL query that is going to query the database with the information and the criteria that we want. So I'm going to ask it to select every record from, and then the name of our table. So just to double check, the name of our table is notes, So select everything from notes where, and then if we go back to our notes, we've got a column called user underscore ID. So where user underscore ID equals 1. Now at this point, this is hard coded 1. You wouldn't do this. We would replace this 1 with a kind of like a placement character, such as a question mark in PHP. And then later on, we can replace the question mark with the user's ID, again, based on them being logged in. But right now we don't have that working, so we're just going to hard code it to 1. So I want it to go and select everything from the table where the user ID matches 1, which is all 3 of our notes at the moment. Next line, we need to execute this query and then store the results into another variable. So $results equals mysqli underscore query, open brackets, semicolon. In the brackets for this function, the parameters that we pass in, we have 2. The first one is a connection to the database, so $con, or whatever you called the variable to store the connection to the database. And then the second thing we pass in is a string query. Now, we could just have this copied, well, cut and paste in here and just have it like that. But just for the sake of having it as a variable, we can then just have that query there. So ultimately what it wants is a connection to the database and the query you want to execute. Okay, once that's happened, we then need to, we can either do this here or we could do it later on in our code, but we need to determine if any results were returned. There might be a scenario where a user signs up, doesn't make any notes, and when we go to display those notes, there aren't any. So we don't want it to display if the result is less than 1. So we have our results stored in results. So if we scroll down to where we got our note section, we can actually put some PHP in here so that it executes, because HTML is executed procedurally, which means it does line by line and displays the content. Once it reaches notes, we can then tell it to do some PHP, print some data, and then it can go ahead and close all of the tags. So it's in line. So in here, we want to run a simple if statement. And again, open and close the brackets. So if we need to check the number of rows, so mysqli underscore num rows, again, open brackets, pass in results. If that's greater than 0, good. If that's true, that means we have notes stored under that user ID. We can then go ahead and loop through each of those notes that has been retrieved and print them. So while $row equals mysqli underscore fetch underscore array. So what we are doing here, and pass in results as our parameter, what we're saying here is take each of the results in the results variable, so take each one individually, assign it to row, and whilst there is another one available, continue. So if we have 3, if we go back to our database, we have 3 here that it's going to retrieve. So this while loop is going to run 3 times. So while $row equals fetch array results, we can then use each individual row and pull the data from it. Now, think of the data. So if I just write the code first and then I'll explain it. So $row, open square brackets, and then in the square brackets, we need to give it a identifier. So in the inverted commas, if we go back to our MySQL table, we can see we've got table names ID, user ID, note title, content, date created. I want note title. So in the code, we are accessing the data, shopping list, app idea to do. We are accessing that data via the title of the column. So note underscore title. And what we need to do with it is just echo. There is a better way that we can print that, but for now, I just want to echo each individual title. So we're going to go ahead and hit save. Let's go over to our page. I'm going to hit home, go to profile, and then we have shopping list, app idea to do. All on one line, doesn't look great, so let's tweak it. So in here, what we can actually do is echo some HTML code. So in inverted commas, we could set up an unordered list, and open an li, insert the data, so use a dot to concatenate, another set of inverted commas, close the li, and what we don't want to close the UL yet, and actually we don't want to open the UL yet. We need that before the while loop, so we can echo opening of a UL tag there. Then we can go ahead and do the while loop, which is going to produce 3 LIs, the data between it, and then close LI. And then once that while loop is finished, we can then go ahead and echo the close UL, which should give us 1 open close and then multiple LIs for that unordered list. So now we go back, hit refresh. You can see here we get it as a bullet pointed list. We don't get any extra. We haven't said that there's 3. We haven't said that there's 2 or 1. We don't get anything other than how many are in the table. So if I was to go here and let's insert 2 more. So I'm just going to insert 2 more just now. Okay, so in my notes app, I've just in the notes table, I've thrown in 2 more. One is from another user ID, just to prove that we aren't going to grab that one as well. And then we've added another one just to show that if we go ahead and then refresh this page, we get another bullet point, which has got the 4th note in the table that's linked to the user ID 1. So if this user was to also then delete this, which they are more than capable of doing on a system that's, you know, their own notes, refresh, that disappears. We don't then have a bullet point there with no text. It's all dynamic. So we have our notes listed. It's probably not the best in terms of the layout and the style. We've got this nice coloring going on. This seems to be a smaller font size than the actual text. But the point being, we have created an SQL query, executed the query and stored the results in a variable. We've then used that variable later on to check if the number of results inside the variable is greater than 0. If it is, we then print some of the contents. So as I was saying before, we might want, say in brackets, the date that note was created. So let's go ahead and tweak this a little bit more. So we've got li, the row title, sorry, the note title, and let's just insert a set of brackets here, close bracket there. Actually, this is where it gets a little bit complicated. So we want inverted commas, open a bracket, and then in between these 2 bits we want $row, square brackets, another set of inverted commas, and then I think it was date underscore created, but let's just double check in the database. Date underscore created, yep, correct. That looks all good. Go ahead and save that. Go back, hit refresh, and then a little bit of a tweak here so we can add a space there. So we have the date that the note was created in the brackets next to the actual note title. And then for future, what we will do is turn this into a hyperlink that then takes the person to a unique page where they can click on that, like say, click that link, and it will display the actual note. So that's it for this video. I'll see you in part 3.